Good morning. Welcome to the third edition of the Stockholm Women's International Jazz Festival. This year is streamed. This year we start the festival with a jazz conference on gender balance in partnership with Europe Jazz Network. You are very welcome to share this video in your own Facebook page. You can also revisit the conference later on.
Yeah, this morning program will start with two keynote speakers, Musikcentrum Öst, Keychange and Macari. Then we will have a 15 minutes pause to 11:15 when we will start the Europe Jazz Network panel until 12:30. Then don't forget to watch our concert starting at 16:30 on Konserthuset Play. So welcome, let's start.
And thank you for having us here today. My name is Ternström. I work at Musikcentrum Öst, and I am a Keychange project manager, the one that is situated in Sweden. And Ragnar?
Hi, I'm Ragnar Berthling. I am director of Musikcentrum Öst, and we are one of the core partners in Keychange. So we're going to talk a little bit about the project with you. So, Mia, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. It's actually my birthday, so this is awesome way to start the day.
Happy birthday. I think we should take a look at a little PowerPoint to get this structured, and then we will talk around it, and we will try to give some kind of idea on what we're trying to achieve and how the project started and all that. So,
and with that said, I would actually like to say that you were one of the initiators of Keychange.
Yeah, that is true. I wouldn't say initiator, but we were in the project from the start. It was so we can talk a little bit about that. See if everything works with the screen share here. So we take it from the start. Yeah, right. So now we can see the picture, right? I'm going to check that it works. Okay, great. Yeah,
we have a name for our figure now. We've named that figure Hen.
Okay, Hen is a good thing. Anyone who's not Swede doesn't understand what it means, but it has actually a neutral linguistic gender, so we can say hen about and then we can include everyone. So yeah, that's true. It started in actually when the idea comes originally from Vanessa Reed at PRS for Music Foundation, and it's actually initiated from a project called Women Make Music. It still exists, so but they wanted to do something more international, European, and focus also both on creation of music and also artists and live music, and eventually innovators. So that's how it started, and we did apply a couple of times to the European Union, and then we launched the first edition in 2017.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me that the first ideas were actually back in 2015. And for the Swedish audience, I mean, those discussions with Sara Larsson at Bråvalla were very, very, very current in those days. Yeah. I mean, that was I've learned throughout the project that this festival lineup discussion that we had back in 2015 is still very prevalent in especially UK. A bit here in Sweden, but not as much.
Yeah, that is true. And when we actually, the first time all the original partners met, that was, we were only 6 then. We actually had the first statistics from Sweden, and they were sort of very widespread. So we had a few festivals that were actually very gender balanced, such as Urkult and Way Out West. And I can say, we're going to tell you a little bit later about how it's constructed, but Way Out West is our Swedish partner, and we're very sad that it doesn't happen this year, but it will next, of course.
Yes. Let's aim
so shall we tell, and what we can say historically, we have done one edition 2017 and 18, and we launched the new edition in 2019, and it will last until 2024. And
when you say edition, you mean the project, like
that is the sort of project, and it actually contains of this. The first project was just one edition where you can apply, and this project has 3 editions. So we are in the first of the new projects, but we will explain that. We will go
dive into the next slide.
So please tell us a little bit, what is it, Mia?
Like exactly what is Keychange? Yeah, well, it's a career development program for what we call gender minority artists and business professionals. And gender minority is a way in English to include everyone who's underrepresented in the music business. So you could say female and non-binaries, but we have chosen to say gender minority just to make sure that everyone is included. I don't feel as we have the same wording in Swedish, so I just wanted to explain that gender minority means inclusion of everyone who is underrepresented. And this is all, the Keychange is a career development program for those artists and music business professionals. And we aim to promote and empower the music innovators and find the leaders for the future music industry since we are promoting them and helping them. And Keychange is also a movement. It has actually grown into a movement, and it's a movement for an equal music industry globally and also off and on stage. It's not only about representation on festivals, but it's also in boards, through the technicians. I mean, everything in the music industry is actually included in the Keychange project now. It's also a force and a tool for a fundamental change in music policies, since we are actually giving our ideas and recommendations to those who are in the positions to change. So we're handing in a new manifesto to the European Parliament and telling them, please, this is what we need to change in order to find a new, more balanced music industry.
Yeah, and we're going to tell you a little bit about the manifesto later. So shall we move to the next slide?
Yeah.
So yeah, why is it needed? I mean, it started with figures, and it's based around a very clear inequality based on data. So, I mean, we have a few examples, and this is still, unfortunately, valid. It was valid when it started, and it's changing very, very slowly, but it's not more than 20% of the music creators that are female or non-binary. So 80% of all music creators registered at the collecting societies are men. more than 84% of music revenues from music right goes to men on an average in the participating countries, that is. So if you go to, there are actually even worse figures in other parts of the world, like we have sort of sniffed on figures from other regions, but what we can follow clearly is what happens in the partner countries. 88.3 of the nominees of Grammy Awards for so many years, 2013 to 2020, were men. And when it comes to Spotify, which is a big factor in both an opportunity to change, but also a sort of a problematic field, it's only it's 98% of the producers and the most popular songs that are men. So we really have a lot to work around.
Yeah, and if we are really into figures, I can say that we have created a framework in our social media that we call Friday Figures. So every Friday we are posting one good number and one bad number when it comes to gender equality in the music business. Have I lost you, Ragnar? No, you're there.
Just, I had to get some juice in my computer.
Yeah. No, but actually, so if you want to check in the Friday Figures, you can go to our socials. Like, we're on Instagram and we're on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. And I'm sorry to say that it's very, very easy to find depressing and bad figures in this area, and very, very hard to find good numbers. But we're trying to find one good number and one bad number. Well, we're not trying to find the bad numbers. They are like, whoa, totally overwhelming every Friday.
So what do we do? Because we are changing this, and this is, we can see a big positive force. And so what are the actions we do?
Within the Keychange programs, as you mentioned, there are actions which when you did the application, that was the initial idea. Okay, how do we change this, right? You and Vanessa talked, like, we need to change it in every level. How do we approach this? So what Keychange does is that we strengthen the individuals in that Keychange program I talked about, which is a career development program, capacity building program for those who are selected for this program. And we had around 700 applicants last time, right? Which 74 were chosen. So they are given this capacity building program.
Yeah.
And another part of Keychange is the Keychange pledge. And pledge is a very good English word. I'm trying to translate it into Swedish. It's but you mentioned it here. We encourage the music industry to sign our pledge to reach an equal music industry. So we want people to take gender equality into account in every aspect of what they're doing.
Yeah, so, and we're gonna explain how the pledge works later.
That's true. So. Yeah, and we also, as I mentioned before, have this level of advocating towards politicians in the Keychange manifesto. So it's the program, it's the Keychange pledge, and it's the Keychange manifesto.
Yeah. So how does the program work then?
If you're selected to the program, there are, in the beginning, you had one edition, as you mentioned, that was 2017 to 2018. And now we have 3 yearly programs. So people are selected and then they are to be showcased at our partners festivals. But I'm going to read what you wrote. We have 4 editions, and as I mentioned, we will have a total of 274 participants when we end this in 2024.
And we were just going to say, because so people understand that it's been a bit messy during the pandemic, but we are soon back on track, and we have enlarged the program. So this is actually what it is. But some of the first participants had a bit longer. We won't go into that. That's not really important. We're looking forward to the future. So what are they offered then?
Yeah, those who are selected, 6 participants from each country are offered, the artists are offered the showcase. The innovators, as we call them, the music business professionals, are offered participation at the music conference, panel participation, and contacts and introductions to people that can help them to build their career. They're offered the capacity building program, as I mentioned, and they are also offered in collaboration with She Said So, a mentoring program. And
I mean, where does it lead? I mean, what is important is that the music conferences are really the big meeting place for the industry.
But because when you created the program, you looked for the weaknesses, like the barriers, the things that why are so many males leaving the industry? How come the gender minorities leave the industry? And I guess that you found that they lack network, they lack exposure, they lack career development. So that is actually what you're being given. Yeah. You want to strengthen those weak points.
Yeah, and we're gonna mention the partners later. But what is important to know is not that we went to the. I mean, this was really something that happened organically. So this initiative comes from the industry. The Showcase Festival that takes part, they really understand that we want to lead this change in the music industry. So it's not that something that is implemented on them. It's more like it's actually an initiative that comes from the, if you want to say, commercial or part of the music industry, because it's all about using all the talent there is.
Because we're missing out on so much talent. So much talents that aren't strengthened. So that is what Keychange aims to do.
So can you say a little bit about the pledge that has been a success story? I can say a little bit how it started, because it was not in the original program, but there were so many people coming to us when we launched the program. So we said that, yes, we need to include everyone in this. So that is actually how it started, and it has grown. So say a little bit about the pledge, Mia.
Yeah, since I've been working, we haven't mentioned this, but this is a collaboration with 12 partners, and 3 of them are core partners, and that is Musikcentrum Öst in Sweden, PRS Foundation in Great Britain, and Reeperbahn Festival in Germany. And throughout these years, I've been working very close with my colleagues in Amsterdam and Germany and Great Britain. And I've come to understand that pledging is quite common, especially in Great Britain. It's actually not really what we do here in Sweden, but we are trying to spread the Keychange pledge, and it's going very well. People are.
For this week, we can actually translate it. It's an avsiktsförklaring. So
avsiktsförklaring. Yeah,
that means that we sign up for this change that we want to, and we do it very concretely.
Yeah, so what you've written is the Keychange pledge is a declaration of intention. So festivals, venues, music companies, unions, labels, organizations, everyone who is included in the music industry can now take this declaration of intention, the Keychange pledge, and say, yes, we are going to change. And when you do that, you show to the world, we are part of the Keychange pledge and the movement. We are changing this. We are taking, I always say, the Swedish say, having it behind our ear, you know, vi har det bakom örat. And they never get it. And I'm like, yeah, but it's just that we need to have this thing it's going to be included in everything that we do. We need to take this into account. So that is what the Keychange pledge is about. But we have also made the Keychange pledge. You can formulate your own pledge if you feel.
But it's important to say it's not only the intention; it's also measurable data that we deliver annually. So we, but it could be very different things from staff to the board to other things, and then of course when it comes to festivals and venues, it's about who is on the stage and off stage.
Yeah, and I know we have a lot of like standard things that people say when they don't want to just change the sign the pledge, and some say, well, there aren't enough artists, there aren't enough quality artists, blah blah blah, and that is like, okay, well, we know that there is, but some actually say, well, we already have a gender balance throughout our organization. And we were like, okay, but you're still welcome to sign it, because we need people to be in, like, at the what do you say, the top of the, you know.
I mean, yeah, they're leading the
movement,
top of the line, and they are actually also, they become role models, but they are also they can also help a lot when it comes to best practice and methods. How do you do
exactly
this? For example, Urkult, they have a very specific way on how they do it. The same with Way Out West. So we really it's both that we want them to shine, of course, but it's also that they can actually help others.
Yeah, exactly. So because we're also with this, we also are constructing a network of pledgers, like people who are really engaged in these issues in the music industry throughout the world. And you started with 6 pledgers back in 2017, right? And now we have over 500. It's like amazing. And we haven't gone official with that number yet, so shush. But it's absolutely amazing. And if you want someone to sign the pledge, you can actually go to our website, and we have this nominate. So you can nominate someone who you think should take the pledge, and we will contact them and tell them more about the pledge and how it works and what we can do to help to have this have this implemented within your organization from your perspective and in your way of working.
Exactly. So this is an important part of Keychange. The next one is the manifesto, and we're going to use our 30 minutes wisely, so we speed up a little bit, I think. So the manifesto is actually a written document, and the first one was delivered in a ceremony in the EU Parliament, and we are a little bit proud to say that it has implemented the new Creative Europe program, and they have said that themselves, that this has been an important push to include issues of gender in the criteria and sort of everything within the system. So I mean, examples is that we are talking about recruitment, we're talking about support systems, we're talking about research, because we need to know a lot more about this. And we also talked about campaigns. And we are now creating a new manifesto which will contain of everything that the participants can deliver into the manifesto, the partners, and all the data that will be created within Keychange. So it will be a big day when we actually deliver this 2024 to the EU, because it will be a very substantial document. So this is this is the first year. We were not so many, but some of them are participants and some of them are partners.
I love that picture of you. You look so funny. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I'm also in this picture.
I'm in the back. So another thing that we should mention is that we need role models on every level, like the festivals are, of course, role models when it comes to infrastructure and all that, but we also have ambassadors. Maybe you should read a little bit of Linnea Henriksson, that is the first Swedish ambassadors. There will be more.
Yeah, this is her quote. It goes like this. First, it was about making them hear that I could sing. Then it was making them see that I could write songs. And then it was making them understand I could produce. Express yourself in a nice tone and always be grateful. Step by step and never too much. Never be too much. Da capo. Sometimes I think of all the music that me and many others could have created if we, instead of spending our time proving ourselves worthy, could have spent on making music instead. All these obstacles before you have even entered the rooms, all these gazes exchanged in these rooms before we were even accepted as competent and gained the titles we already had in practice, but seldom on paper. I am a proud ambassador of Keychange because I love music and I want more.
This really frames very much the sort of the core of what we do. We need those change makers, and we need more people to actually take place in the music industry.
Yeah, I love that she points out that people in gender minorities in the music industry sometimes actually do the things that would say that they are, like they produce, but they are not giving the title producer because it's just because they are gender minorities. I don't know.
Yeah,
very strange.
So maybe we should actually just state a little bit about the when we talk about gender, we talk about gender minorities, right? So it's we're not talking about men and women. That was how it started, but now things have developed, and we should because I think we might run over time here. So just so we have time to say everything we want to say. We have also included other aspects. So maybe you can say a little bit about the intersectionality, Mia.
Yeah, we've tried to take intersectionality into account. I mean, we absolutely look at the gender balance, but we also acknowledge that there are other factors that are barriers for you in the music industry. So we need to take class and race, and I mean, in Swedish we don't talk about race, we say ethnicity, but in America, you know, there are various ways of talking about these issues, but we need to take all of those things into account, and we try to do that within Keychange, and we are also being called out a lot if we don't. So I love that we are learning so much about these issues.
That is true, and so we also have to talk a little bit about the pandemic, not only when it comes to it's been a messy with the project, but it's we really are focusing a lot, like all music industry are focusing on the rebuild of the industry, but we also need to actually take a close look on what has happened during the pandemic, and we have some disturbing figures that the underrepresented genders among them, they have lost more money, and they have also actually more of them are planning or has left their profession. And this is really so we need to be very careful that we don't step back now. So the new, and we also, of course, things like sustainability, also when it comes to environment, has influenced us a lot, and we are a part of we are actually pledging ourselves for the Music Declares Emergency pledge. That is a UK initiative. So
yeah, and throughout
the have to target on diversity and equality.
Throughout the pandemic, it was kind of hard because we were so focused on actually having a music industry, especially in the beginning. But throughout the pandemic, it became more and more clear to us that, okay, this is the crisis, and it's as in every crisis and war zones, women and children are hit harder by the problems. And that is actually true for this crisis as well. Mm-hmm. So gender equality in the music business is even more acute than it was before COVID, right? That was actually what you already said.
Yeah. So we have sort of scraped on the surface of this quite complex project. So we just want to say who we are. We are, you can look up every festival on the webpage, and they are beautiful forerunners in this. And we work with so many more. All the, like in the jazz scene, we work with women in jazz organization in many countries. We are big fans of Impra, of course, and we are so happy to be part of this great initiative, this Dream Festival. So maybe we should say a little bit how to contact us and how to interact with us, Mia.
Yeah, and I also I want to mention our Swedish sponsors, STIM, and also, as you said, the Swedish festival that we didn't mention the festivals that much though. We have partner festivals in 12 countries, and the partner festival in Sweden is Way Out West, who has been doing a gender balanced lineup for at least 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to get in contact, as I mentioned before, we are on all socials. And what we also try to do, that actually was the intention in the application to EU, is to incorporate everyone in our movement and to give you the same info that we are giving our participants, so everyone can have tips and be educated, and we are happy to connect. So please get in touch if you are working within this, or if you just want to be a part of our movement. We want to collaborate. There's nothing like this for Keychange. We want to collaborate with everyone who is doing the same work as we do. So please get in touch and please follow us, because I try to actually get things out there that are of use for you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was it, I think. And if you please reach out to us any way you want, and
yeah, you can email me.
In the jazz scene.
Yeah, you can email me at Mia at keychange.eu. That is my email address if you want to get in touch. And you can also, as I mentioned, check out our website, and you can look what you can do to actually today make the world a better place. No, but to enhance the gender equality in the music business today. What can I do? Go into that section.
So have a great festival, and take care, get vaccinated, and hope to see you live very soon.
Cool. I will check out the artists. Will do.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So last year I wrote an article. I was asked to write an article by Jazz Connective, which is an EU-funded project that the Vortex was a part of. And the article is called "Where Are All the Good Questions About Women in Jazz?" Gender balance is something that I have been asked about and have thought about and have spoken about a lot throughout my career, working as a woman in a male-dominated industry. You're often asked to be the spokesperson for the minority of which you're a part. But I have noticed in recent years there's been a shift. There's been a shift in the conversation and a desire to embrace change. And I was really thankful for the opportunity to write this article, because it was a long form piece and with a very, very open brief, and it really, really helped me to be able to think very carefully and to distill what I thought about these things in a way that a talk or a question at a panel hadn't really given me the opportunity to do. So with that in mind, as I talk about women in jazz and about gender balance in jazz, I'm gonna read excerpts from the article, and I'm sure Sylvia can also post a link to the full piece. And it starts with a quote by Lani Grunier, who is a writer and a professor and a very brilliant thinker. on the concept of meritocracy. So she writes, "The conventional understanding of meritocracy is that it's a system for awarding or allocating scarce resource to those who most deserve it. The idea behind meritocracy is that people should achieve status or realise the promise of upward mobility based on their talent or individual effort. It's conceived as a pushback of systems like aristocracy, where individuals inherit their social status. I'm arguing that many of the criteria we associate with individual talent and effort do not measure the individual in isolation, but rather parallel the phenomena associated with aristocracy. What we're calling individual talent is actually a function of that individual's social position or opportunities gained by virtue of family and ancestry. So although the system we call meritocracy is presumed to be more democratic and egalitarian than aristocracy, it is in fact reproducing that which was intended to dislodge." And then I go on to write, "The idea of meritocracy is insidious. It's got all the things the best untruths have. It seduces, it reinforces, and most importantly, it exonerates. More than any other argument, it's the one I'd hear cited most frequently and by every group within our music sector: artists, promoters, producers, educators, journalists, presenters, managers, and agents. It looms large over us in the arts because we are all driven to produce and showcase the best and most brilliant. It's odd to me because the beauty of art is that it's subjective. What ignites my soul may not ignite yours, and thank goodness for that, because what would life be like if taste and subjectivity were removed from art? I've lost count of the number of times I've heard the cyclical passing of responsibility to address gender imbalance in jazz and improvised music. From programmers saying there aren't enough female artists to achieve balanced programming because we only want to book the best acts, it's their music, not their gender that matters. They point to the conservatoires, they're responsible for the supply chain. The conservatoires can retort, we only work with applications we get, we only accept the best applicants. You can't expect us to offer places to people less deserving just because they're women. The conservatoires can point to the schools, telling them to sort it out. The schools can reply, how can we encourage girls to take up instruments and feel excited about jazz when they look at conservatoire courses, look at jazz festival lineups and venue programmes, and don't see those environments as welcoming or a place for them to flourish? And of course, let us not forget about the voice of the artist. Many women have voiced concerns about being given opportunities because they're a woman, and who feel uncomfortable about targeted funding schemes. The message is implicit. We don't want to be assessed on anything other than our creative output. We want to be awarded things solely on merit, like everyone else. But here's the thing, the really, really important thing. Meritocracy does not exist. Like Lani Grunier says, none of us make decisions in a vacuum. Decisions and opportunities are made and given due to a complex web of factors that include social standing, socioeconomic status, race, gender, religious belief, lived experience, education, and the list goes on. None of this goes on in our conscious minds, and it's easy to forget that it's happening. But the sooner we all understand these powerful forces of unconscious bias and the default settings of our own thinking, the sooner we can take ownership of the power and the responsibility we have to ensure that our art form reflects the world it's created in. All of us have a vital part to play in creating change. And then there's a quote by Caroline Criado Perez, who wrote a book called Invisible Women, that looks at how data has excluded women and led to a number of consequences in politics, in the arts, in health and safety, because they don't recognise women within data sets. And she says, it's also testament to the attractiveness of a myth that tells people who benefit from it that all their achievements are down to their own personal merit. it's no accident that those who are most likely to believe in the myth of meritocracy are young, upper-class, white Americans. And after I talk about meritocracy, I move on then to look at the structures and the systems that might not be working, and to look at how we might change them. There's been great work in the field of youth jazz education to address the gender imbalance we see at higher education level and beyond, and to prepare young musicians with the skills and knowledge needed to succeed in these environments. Important evidence, both data-driven and anecdotal, is produced by these educators about when we see this gender divide really start to become apparent, and about the successes and the challenges faced when developing bespoke programmes to encourage underrepresented groups to pursue jazz or improvised music careers. In recent years, I've been heartened to see dialogue between youth music education and conservatoires increase, and the UK is home to a number of conferences, networks and events formed to work together on this issue. But what I haven't seen is a critical investigation or a proposed reform of the systems in place that we're preparing these young musicians to succeed in. I'd posit that the way auditions are held for jazz degree programmes is more or less the same now as it was when I went through them over 10 years ago, and that it had been the same for many years by the time I arrived. If a system attracts and produces a homogenous group of people, and we are concerned about a lack of diversity, why don't we ask ourselves if the system is fit for purpose? Why don't we seek to change the game instead of the player? Posse Foundation was founded by Deborah Beale in 1989, and their mission was to improve the diversity of students and graduates from top US universities, and to set up a programme that would encourage and prepare students from diverse backgrounds to succeed in their studies and beyond. This, it was hoped, would positively impact on communities across the US and to diversify the people in leadership positions across all fields. The way that it works is that students from public schools in urban areas in the US are nominated by their teachers, and that Posse Foundation uses an alternative assessment process to measure qualities such as boldness, resilience, creativity, and the ability to work as a team, rather than relying on the traditional standardised test scores, class rankings, and grade point averages. Students are selected and placed into groups of 10, and then full scholarships are provided with one of the partner institutions. Continuous support and mentoring is provided throughout the studies. This approach deals with a number of issues simultaneously. First, that standardised admissions process works well for a specific group of people. We all know wonderful, smart and brilliant people who crumble under the pressure of an interview or exam. And by offering an alternative process, they broaden the scope of the university's intake. Secondly, the financial support deals directly with the socio-economic barrier to accessing education. Thirdly, the foundation recognises and places value in the presence of a network of peers and of support, particularly when attempting to alter the makeup of a student body. They have a different set of priorities for entry, they provide financial support, and they provide pastoral care. And it's no surprise that this three-pronged approach has produced strong results. The Posse Foundation students have a graduation rate of 90%. 57% of students are first-generation college students. Since 2001, students and alumni have won over 500 national fellowships. Founder Deborah Beale was awarded a MacArthur Genius Grant, and Barack Obama in 2010 awarded Posse Foundation part of the share of his Nobel Prize Award in recognition of their work. This is just one example of work in other fields that addresses lack of diversity. Look at the list of attributes that the Foundation lists in their admissions process: creativity, resilience, boldness. Aren't these exactly the type of qualities that we should be fostering in the next generation of artists? My deep concern is that unless we consider reforming the way we support young jazz musicians to develop and grow, we'll continue to wrestle with serious diversity issues. Not only that, we'll continue to produce an annual fleet of tradespeople, those who are exceptionally adept at the technical aspects of the art form, yet similar in experience, background and creative input and output, who will have to suffer the frustration and disappointment of a saturated market that can't sustain so many of their careers, as well as them discovering that the meritocracy we've extolled to them throughout their education is a myth. The next issue that I tackle is the question of signalling versus normalisation. There's been a significant shift in the discourse about gender balance in the arts in the last few years, and more people are agreeing that there's a problem and are willing to do something about it. And the next question we ask ourselves is, what do we do? There are numerous examples of high-profile projects and initiatives that address gender imbalance. And there are countless low-profile initiatives too, festivals that ensure photographs used are balanced and each page draws the eye equally toward different images, venues that have gender balance embedded in their programming strategy without reference to it, organisations that work to ensure parity across staffing structures, that publish diversity reports and track progress or lack of progress on an annual basis. It's a common conversation topic to compare these two types of approach, high versus low profile, signalling versus normalisation. Often people prefer one to the other, and many cite one as the right answer and the other as the wrong one. I've had this very discussion with myself many times as I tried to find the right answer, and I've come to the conclusion that we need both to ensure meaningful change. A recent study conducted by the Women's Refugee Council found that female students perform better in science when the images in their textbooks include female scientists. If I can see it, I can be it. So initiatives that seek to improve the visibility of women in our field are vital to encouraging the next generation. However, they go hand in hand with initiatives that normalise gender parity, as we strive for a world in which we are no longer having to highlight that women actually exist and convince our children that they can pursue any career they choose. Of course, neither of these will be of any long-term use unless we commit to dismantling the power structures and the systemic bias that exist everywhere we look. So, there's the problem and there's the solution. Obviously, I've simplified and I've condensed what is a hugely complex issue, but I don't believe that we should allow the enormity of a problem to deter us from working to solve it. Caitlin Moran talks about a patchwork quilt of pioneering in her book Moranifesto. She says if we take our little square and we do with it what we can and what we feel comfortable doing, then we can join them all together to form something much bigger than ourselves. We need the loud, placard-waving protesters just as much as we need the quiet policymakers and the writers. Far more important than the choice of activity is that we're all travelling in the same direction, that we use our energy to propel us forward. In an episode of Lauren Schiller's podcast Inflection Point, Amber Tamblyn said that we are living in a moment of chaos. In her book The Era of Ignition, Tamblyn creates a manifesto for modern feminism, a guide to living during divisive times. As one of the founders of Time's Up, she joined with other Hollywood actors, writers and activists to make a stand against the culture of sexual harassment in the entertainment industry, in response to the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein's public unveiling as a sexual predator and his subsequent prosecution. She talks about the meetings that she and others involved in would hold with 50 to 70 women in someone's large house sitting together and talking. Tamblyn didn't want to propose a solution to the problem, but instead she wanted to bring people together to spark discussion on important questions. What can be done? What can we use? What can we do to work together to force change? There were many positives, moments of inspiration and breakthroughs in the work of Time's Up, but I think the key message lies in the challenges and the criticisms. In the meeting, certain voices dominated the discussion and caused tension, and these tended to be wealthy middle-class women in powerful positions. Sometimes in the sharing of experiences, accusations would fly between the women and the anger was misdirected. When a number of actors opted to invite activists and political figures as their date to the Golden Globes, the press criticised them as being activists and using activists for moral accessories. Tamblyn recalls many moments of being uncomfortable, but that's okay, she says. It's good. We're going to be uncomfortable for a long time as we try to unravel a complicated issue. We're going to make mistakes and reflect on choices that were made in good faith, but which missed the mark. All of this, she says, is an important part of change, and I think she's absolutely right. We've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We've got to reconcile with the fact that as we try to make positive change, we might cause offence. We might isolate when we try to accommodate. We've got to become comfortable with these phrases. I don't know. I was wrong. Can you help me? Too many well-meaning conversations and panel discussions on diversity in the arts are futile because people are concerned about saying the wrong thing and are afraid to show their ignorance or ask a difficult question. If we embrace the chaos and the messiness of our world, and we acknowledge that it's okay to make mistakes, to change our mind, to ask for help, we'll have so much more energy and time to deal with the important things in life. In fact, feeling uncomfortable is what connects us. It's easy to feel overwhelmed. But whenever we feel hopeless, we can remember that if we bang our heads against a brick wall long enough, the wall will start to crumble. I wrote this about 6 months ago, and it still feels like a true statement of what I feel is the correct approach to unravelling very complicated issues, which is to tell people that it's all allowed, to tell people that it's okay to feel uncomfortable, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to have to apologise and say that you were wrong, and it's okay to not be able to produce a clean, crisp solution to a massive problem, but rather to try to work things out, to change tact, and to include as many different voices as possible. So, with gender balance neatly covered there, I wanted to move on to the idea of cultural gentrification. So this idea of cultural gentrification is something that I've been thinking a lot about in the past year or so. There's this amazing book called Gentrification of the Mind, which is written by Sarah Schulman, that talks about the AIDS crisis and the impact that the AIDS crisis had on culture and society. And also talks about the way that history has been rewritten or smoothed out, and that it doesn't necessarily paint an accurate picture of, in this case, the struggle for recognition and support for AIDS, but on a much broader level, the way that we smooth the corners in retrospect. And that book got me thinking a lot about cultural gentrification. It put a name to something that I'd been aware of and mindful of and worried about for a long time. I feel like jazz and improvised music started as a radical protest music, and that currently a lot of jazz and improvised music in the UK, which is where I live and where my lived experience is produced by people that are white and middle class. That I don't see a lot of jazz and improvised music that deals with protest or activism or radicalism. And I wanted to understand why that was, or at least form a hypothesis for why I thought it was. So, just to go back a little bit, when I talk about gentrification, well, what is that? So, for me, it's the movement from bold to banal. It's the movement from diverse to homogenous. One of the definitions of the word is that when it was first used, it was used to describe what happens in cities, often the gentrification of cities, and described as being the transformation of a place by outside forces for profit. And so you'd see the power shift from local community to outside voices. You'd see an increase in the number of chain stores and restaurants. You'd see rent increases. You'd see a large increase in housing developments. And you'd see the displacement of people. And living in London, obviously I can see that very clearly, and that happens a lot. Essentially, it's kind of a way that all the edges of something are smoothed. And it made me think about why artists like cities. And Schulman talks about this in her book. This question, what does art need in order to be radical and to thrive? So it needs freedom and interaction and rebellion and imagination and oppositionality. And she talks about the things that an art scene needs in order to thrive. Some of those things being things like affordable housing, the diversity of thought and experience, stimulation and lots of raw material, the celebration of difference, and regular direct access to great art and artists, which kind of explains why artists are drawn to cities, to be part of conversations and to invent and to witness others invent new approaches. And certainly that would explain why I was drawn to live in a city like London. But you can kind of expand that theory of gentrification of a place and look at it more broadly, and see gentrification in action in other ways. So one example being the gentrification of language. I heard a broadcaster talk about sunsetting a radio show, and that turn of phrase felt really sinister to me. It kind of felt a little bit Orwellian. And the way that Schulman talks about it is that this happens a lot, and how she describes it is that it's a falsely conversational tone that's intended to be reassuring about apocalyptic things. So again, to gentrify language, you take away the oppositionality, the boldness, you smooth it out in order for it to feel more comfortable. And you see the gentrification of history. And so this was how Schulman first described this process, was that she was driving and she heard a broadcast about the AIDS crisis. And the broadcaster said, at first America had trouble with people with AIDS, but then they came round. And she said that she had to pull over the car, and she said, we cannot allow people to rewrite history like that. She says, we cannot let the committed battle of thousands, many to their deaths, be falsely naturalised into America coming round. No one with power in America comes round. They always have to be forced into positive change. The people that forced that positive change are dead, and we have responsibilities, we the living. And of course, that's not the only example of the gentrification of history, and I guess in some respects, because history is written from one person's standpoint and often the victor, we see that happen all the time. I see it happen in our current government's proposal to retain and explain stolen artefacts from our colonial past in heritage sites and galleries and museums. That if you have language that feels encouraging and soft, it can shroud a very jagged, raw, urgent issue in a kind of fluffy cloud. And so to use this idea of gentrification and to move it into culture, I think works worryingly well. To take arts academia as an example, to take the shift from the informal ways, master and apprentice ways, generational sharing ways of passing down art forms, that shift into the academy. In fact, Schulman, she describes it, arts academia, she describes it as a Ponzi scheme. The worst of which are often just money machines that rip off people who are not artists and will never be artists, while paying starvation wages to real artists teaching to survive. So you can see that she's definitely not making the mistake of gentrifying her language there. But to really interrogate then, how does our arts academia contribute to cultural gentrification? Well, first of all, they are filtered communities, and so an admissions process, the cost of attendance, to an extent will always homogenise a field. Then it looks at mainstream success, which rewards repetition. Some graduates become focused on a concept of mainstream success that's predicated on the repetition of what's already known. There's an unartful reliance on the cues of the exterior world and engagement with values that place familiarity over expansion of consciousness. Of course, there's also an argument that academia perpetuates entitlement and exclusivity. And to look at what the potential remedies are for that, some proposals are to have more rogue places of learning, to have low-cost classes that are run independently, aiming towards a kind of critical mass at which that counteracts this dominant academy. And really interestingly, in the example of music, we can really clearly track the gentrification of music. And it was the point at which bars stopped using live bands and started using jukeboxes to create music in their bars. Someone realised that if there were gaps in the music, people would leave the dance floor. If there was silence between tracks, people would leave the dance floor. And if they left, they would be less likely to spend money at the bar. People realised that you wanted continuous music with continuous beat to keep people engaged, which then meant that they'd spend more money. And so, as soon as you connect art with trying to make people comfortable, we've kind of lost the battle, haven't we? It perpetuates this idea that comfort is good and uncomfort is bad, that we want to avoid it at all costs. And so you see how clearly that idea can really gentrify culture. Because if we have told everyone, and we have been told, that art should be comfortable, that's when you get mainstream entertainment. And I don't mean to decry the merits of mainstream entertainment, but what I mean is that's a specific type of entertainment which is about comfort. It's also about generating income. If you don't want art that makes you feel uncomfortable, we are stopping a lot of art being made and supported. And it goes back to what I said before about if we want to really address diversity issues within the arts, it needs to come from a massive reform, not just of our institutions, but of the way that our societies are led. That musics like ours will not survive and thrive and develop if we try to make them fit the criteria of other culture, gentrified culture. I don't think the way that we succeed as an art form is to mould our art form so that it looks and sounds like the art forms that have the most airtime on TV or on radio, because I don't think that the capitalist model for success is the one that is most appropriate for artistic success, whatever that is. But in order for us to proceed on a different tact, we really need strong communities that we can work together with to encourage that, to make that flourish, to make that happen. Rather than trying to change what we have in place to make it look like something else, I think we need something else. And so I don't think we can completely remove different diversity issues and deal with them in isolation. And it's important to recognise that they exist as a very, very complex system, that this intersectional idea of people's backgrounds, and that we kind of have to deal with them, at least in part, we have to deal with them as one big mess that we feel uncomfortable in as we try to kind of wade our way through. So really, that's me. I hope that some of those things have resonated with some of you, and I'm more than happy to pick up conversations on anything that I've mentioned here, to expand on it, to hear people's ideas, and I'm sure the festival will facilitate a way that we can do that remotely for now. But once again, thank you and congratulations to the festival and conference team and their partners for creating this event, and I hope it goes on for many years, and I hope I'm invited back in some capacity. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, welcome, välkommen, tervetuloa, herzlich willkommen, vitame hos Geldines. Did I say that right? My name is Henna Salo. I'm here with you from Finland, Espoo. So greetings from Finland, here from the neighbor of Sweden. I'm the moderator of this next session, which is proudly presented by the Europe Jazz Network, the fantastic Europe-wide network of colleagues and friends working in jazz. So thank you very much, tack så mycket, and so forth and so on for EGN for having us in this panel. We have 5 brilliant panelists here with us today, and this is a all-female panel, but it's about a non-all-female, very important theme. It's a theme that I think the theme should be of interest to everyone. A very important comment first. I'm sure there's lots of you following and wanting to ask questions. So feel free to post your questions, your comments on the Facebook and the YouTube page where you're following this during the streaming. So that's very much appreciated, and we will take your questions later on. So what we're going to discuss today is the gender balance, or the lack of that balance in the jazz field, the experiences we have, the reality we are all living in as female jazz professionals. There's some facts and figures, of course, and most of all, solutions. So what is there to do? What can we do to fix this? Or to make it better, at least. But let's start by introducing this very professional and experienced panel of ours. And what I suggest is that we go on alphabetical order of your first name. So I have Fiona Ross from the UK. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, welcome. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for having me in this, I have to say, incredible panel of women. I'm quite excited to see how discussions go. So briefly, I'm a jazz artist, so I'm a pianist, composer, producer, and so on. But my capacity here, I'm the founder of an organisation called Women in Jazz Media, which we set up very much so to look at this gender balance and the diversity and kind of create or help to create and support a fully diverse and balanced jazz industry. We're a team of female photographers, female journalists, female authors, and musicians as well. Yes, that's a very brief overview. There's many things I could tell you, but yes, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Great to have you with us. Next, I'd like to introduce Martina van Nieuwland, who we used to know as Martina Markowska. So congratulations for your new surname and for your recent wedding. But hey, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. It's so nice to see you all on the screen, and I hope that there will be a lot of interaction. Yes, my name is Martina van Nieuwland Markowska, previously, and I'm here in Katowice, actually Chorzów, the city nearby, representing Katowice Jazz Art Festival and the Institution of Culture Katowice City of Gardens. So we are only 2 Polish festivals in Poland that became members of Keychange. We were the first one, and still we are just 2. So that's why I think that all of our experience and this what we have in Poland now will be maybe directed by me in a way. So thanks again, and lovely to see you all.
Great to see you. And we'll go on from Poland to Germany, Berlin. We have Nadine Deventer. Welcome, and could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Yes, hello, and thanks for the invitation. Great to see all of you. My name is Nadine Deventer. I'm the artistic director of the Jazz Fest Berlin for already 3 years now. I'm not sitting in Berlin, as you might see. I'm in Portugal, outside. There's a little background noise from birds. And I will mute myself not to disturb too much. We are also a member of the Keychange initiative with our festival. We joined immediately when I took over the artistic leadership in 2018, and there are a couple of other festivals, jazz festivals, that joined that initiative afterwards, but there is still very much to be done. So looking forward to this conversation.
Fantastic. It was actually really refreshing to hear those birds out of a 1980s office. So yeah, I envy you just a little bit. It's not quite as warm in Finland as it seems to be in Portugal. So enjoy. After that, we will move on to the UK. So we have Pelin Opchin there. Would you introduce yourself? And thanks for being here first.
Hello, nice to see you all. Again, a wonderful panel of amazing women speakers. I am Pelin Opchin, and I'm the Director of Programming for Sirius, and my main responsibility is the artistic and strategic direction of EFG London Jazz Festival, alongside many projects that we do throughout the year. We do national touring, we take care of talent development schemes in which we are extremely careful around gender balance and other diversity matters. I was the director of Istanbul Jazz Festival until 2018. When I joined Sirius, we immediately joined Keychange, and obviously Keychange is an initiative which is taken up by many institutions in the UK, and it's a very hot topic, which we will be discussing throughout this panel. So yeah, happy to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And last but not least, Sunna Gunnlaugs, who is hailing from Iceland, but is in Stockholm. Do I say it right?
Yes. Hey, happy to be with you all. Yes, I'm here in Stockholm, and great to be joining all of you in this important discussion. I am a pianist and a composer, and I also directed the Reykjavik Jazz Festival for about 5 years, and I currently run 2 concert series in Iceland. And I serve on the board of Europe Jazz Network, and my heart is really in trying to improve the gender balance on the jazz scene. And so as a co-director of the Reykjavik Jazz Festival, I made it a priority to sort of create space for women and move away from the patriarchy that had kind of ruled the scene and still does a bit. And same with one of the concert series I started called Freyju Jazz. That is, the main focus is to create opportunities for women, to make it a little bit easier for them to enter the scene, to make them visible. And so every act on the concert series has to have at least one woman to take part. And I was hoping that I would encourage our brothers in jazz to reach out to the women on the scene and form projects to take part in the concert series, but that did not quite happen for some reason. But what happened is that women started forming new projects together with each other. And so just I'm still continuing, hoping to, or looking forward to continuing this work once we get rid of COVID. So happy to be here.
Very nice to have you. And yeah, saying the word COVID, well, we've been talking about, I guess, pretty much nothing else than that topic for the latest 12 or 14 months. We will have to tackle that as well later on. But yeah, let me introduce myself as well very briefly. So my name is Henna. I work as production manager at Cello Hall, which is a 400 capacity concert hall and cultural center in Espoo, which is the second biggest city here in Finland. So it's here right next to the capital, Helsinki. And we program all genres of music, performing arts as well. And well, yeah, we've been fully closed from the audience since last November. So we are really, really looking forward to welcoming the artists as well as the audience here sometime in the next month. So let's see how it goes. We're looking forward to August, which is when we are supposed to be opening our next season. But hey, let's start with the actual panel, and thank you for the introductions. Yeah, well, the gender balance, as we know, the case remains the same since forever. The male musicians, men in all, they dominate the jazz field, be it musicians, the professionals, festival directors, agents, promoters, media, all the audience for that matter. Talking about these roles, the different roles, I'd like to start from the very core, which is the musician. If there weren't musicians, I guess none of us would have the jobs either. So maybe Sunna, could you as a successful musician share your views first? You've got many awards, recognitions under your belt. how does it feel to very often be the only woman in the room or on stage?
Yeah, it's a bit lonely sometimes, you know, but I don't think I really thought about it in the very beginning. I'm actually the first professional female jazz musician in Iceland, so I had no role models. And I think as a musician, it didn't really bother me. And I felt it more as when I got into the director's position and I was in the position to say no to the guys, that's when I sort of faced the opposition and the doubts about my qualifications, you know. But I think in a way, it's been to my benefits to be a woman on the jazz scene because we're few, so it's maybe a bit easier to get attention. Although some of the write-ups in the papers have been kind of humorous, you know, but it's, I think, fine for me, you know.
Yeah, it's that's the good way to put it. We should also see, first and foremost see the positive side. Yeah, if you're the only woman in the room, then why not take advantage of it also in a positive way? What about you gatekeepers? We've got 3 of you top-notch gatekeepers, decision makers here. Pelin, as director of programming and board member of the legendary, if I can say so, Sirius in London. You're hailing from Turkey originally. You have a really versatile background. You were studying something different in the beginning, were you not arts at all. So what's your take on this? What are these roles like and how do you experience it?
I think it all comes down to how you can see the issue and how you respond to it. And if you, like Suna says, if you have this blank, you know, approach to the issue and not necessarily addressing that you could be subject to gender discrimination, or in my case, background discrimination, which luckily didn't happen, or I can actually overcome, you know, of that, then you have full confidence in yourself and you can move forward. As a professional in the sector, again, like you said, we put the musicians and the music first, and we look at from the musicians and the artist angle. Our job is to provide the platform for the artists to present their work, to engage with their communities, their audiences. However, when we do that, we realize that there is a lot of responsibility around that duty. It is, like you say, even though it's gatekeeping, in a way, it's more like orchestrating that there is equal opportunities for everyone. And that is a wall that we hit when we look at the gender balance, you know, the landscape of how many male musicians are there available, touring, being presented, accessing the great resources of being marketed or promoted versus female musicians. And at the end of the day, of course, the artistic choice is the pillar when we compile all this amazing submissions for the festival or information. But it also comes down to making fair choices and saying, okay, we need to, yes, prioritize the artistic choice, but then there are amazing artistic output coming from gender minorities and not just women, who doesn't necessarily access the equal promotion or support. It is our extra duty to pay extra attention to that. That is the area which brings in the gatekeeping situation. So yeah, I mean, in my experience as a musician, maybe Suna said it was a bit lonely. For us, maybe in my generation of artistic directors or professionals in the industry, we started making the change. So when I first joined the networks, there was already other role models who were women and leading festivals, but numbers were few. And then I met Nadine, I met Martina, I met other wonderful people from other, you know, festivals. There is iconic women who are doing the amazing job behind closed doors. There is Michaela Maitert, who isn't the director of the festival, but she's running the full programming of Montreux Jazz Festival, for instance. So even within the profession, the roles, the identities aren't very much on the forefront. There is Annika Larsson from Umbria Jazz Festival. She's not the director of the festival, but she's running the programming. So I think there needs to be, how do we see this position? Do we make the most of it? And do we see, okay, there's this discrimination and I'm completely touched by it and it stops how I work? Or do we actually make things work, make things happen, and say, you know, actions speak louder than words? So my experience was like over the years to show that this can be done as well as anyone else by a woman. And I was very lucky. I had very supportive employers in Istanbul, which you might actually feel, you know, surprised, relatively Eastern society. But we were really lucky coming from a visionary institution, and I found similar support and empowerment in London, in Sirius. So upwards, onwards.
Fantastic. Well put, very well put. Martina, what about yourself? Also, Poland, maybe there's these prejudices that Poland is very conservative. How did people react when you climbed up to the position where you're now, also as a head of programming?
Yeah, thanks for the question, because as you know about the movements now and all political situation in Poland, that could be even a bigger picture of that in the recent events which are going on since last fall. But we had a very good talk with a journalist, with Magdalena Fiałkowska, before this panel now that we are having. And Magdalena is recently also the board member of Jazz Nad Odrą Festival in Wrocław, one of the biggest Polish jazz festivals. And we were talking about it. I'm very grateful if she is listening to us, so I would just wave to her and to the whole team of the festival. Jazz Nad Odrą, because we were thinking that it's very also historical matter that in Poland women are in this position, leading positions, because it's all the history after the war and all what happened, that women had to be in power, had to be in the leading roles because there was lack of men after the war. So it's all very historical, and also the communism times that brought the women, you know, women for the tractors and all the proletariat, the working women, the farmers, and so on. So I think that when I'm talking to my colleagues from Belgium or from the Netherlands, from Finland, maybe not that, because Finland is already like so advanced in gender equality, but in some other countries, they are always saying that, you know what, there might be this vision of Poland that, yeah, Catholic country with women being a bit pushed behind, but I think that that was something remarkable. There's like, yeah, but we wouldn't be the head of the festivals, for instance. In Poland, it's possible. There are fantastic women leaders of the jazz festivals. But the thing is, what I've been also discussing with other colleagues here in Poland, that usually is the position that there is this fantastic, brilliant male artistic director, and then the female who is behind the scene, who is organizing everything, and who is really doing this black job. So that was also my story. That first of all, I was organizer, I was coordinator of the festival. And then when things were changing within the institution, I immediately, because it was so short for the festival, for the next edition, that I was just filling up the program, and that it stayed like that. So until now. And I'm very lucky and very grateful also for my colleagues, the guys who are doing the festival together in the whole team. So I see the big difference, also a generational, like the Mateusz, Michał, Bastek, who are working with us. They are young, but they're all feminists. So this is great. And so I think that there is some kind of hope also in that young power that we have.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah, we might want to share some of that experience that we have, and then again keep in mind that the next generation might have they do have a slightly better position. But it's interesting that you both, Pelin and Martina, you refer to the situation where there's the guy, the top dog on spotlight, and then the lady behind who actually does the work. So that's pretty interesting position. Nadine, talking of pioneering, you became the artistic director of Jazz Fest Berlin in 2018, was that right? How do you see your role? Because you are truly pioneering there as well as a female director in jazz.
Well, first of all, I also need to say that as the same as for Martina and Pellen, I was serving for a long time, serving the guys. You know, I was working behind the scenes and organizing a lot. I'm a freelancer. That might be a different position too, and a different perspective on the whole business. I'm a freelancer for already nearly 20 years now. I have been hired only for 3 years as in my whole career as the production manager of the Berliner Festspiele, which is the umbrella organization that the Jazz Fest Berlin is also part of. And I have also been involved in that position, dealing with the Jazz Fest. And I'm pretty sure that if that would not have been the case, I would never have been appointed artistic director of the Jazz Fest Berlin. In Germany, these positions, there are no open calls. You can't apply for this. These very interesting positions like Intendanten, like general managers of big organizations, or artistic directors, also in the higher culture, as they say in Germany, are mostly still appointed, which I consider a very strange attitude. Still, that should be changed because it gives more room, it gets more accessible and democratic. I think it's a very outdated system. And for me, it was a big chance also to be involved, to have been already involved for 3 years dealing with the Berliner Festspiele, which is a quite complicated, big organization running several festivals. In total, we are producing some 800 events throughout the year, running a museum, the Gropiusbau. So every festival has its space, and it's very professionally organized. And to be honest, if I would not have had the chance to already have been engaged in that, I would not have taken over the job, because it's very important to know your peers and in the structures, and also how such a big organization is working, and also to get trust, you know, to trust yourself, to be able to kind of ask yourself, could that be a possibility? The artistic director with whom I have been working together for the Jazz Fest for 3 years before I finally became artistic director myself was Richard Williams. And when it became clear that he would not be interested to get another 3 years contract, I also, at first place, you are appointed for 3 years only. That's also maybe a difference compared to Pellen and Martina. And now well, 3 years, and then Richard didn't want to go on. He was asked, but he didn't want to go on. And then I thought myself, why couldn't I kind of try to do this, to take over that task, you know, because I know the structure. As I said, I have been studying music, and I have been working in the cultural field already at that point for 17 years in very, very different contexts, mostly in jazz, but also very, very many other things. I have been changing places 5-6 times in order to study and to work, and also and then you develop a vision, and also kind of you are experienced enough in a way, but that was a bit my story. And because you asked how we are working with the Jazz Fest, the Jazz Fest is a quite big platform. It's a very old festival. It's 57 years old, and it's a very visible platform. It's a historic, important jazz platform. It was one of the first festivals bringing over American musicians to Europe, and also African American musicians to Europe. And as I said, I already was involved before with Richard, also developing a concept for the festival, and then I could continue and take it
and take it even a step further, also responding to what we call zeitgeist. And the zeitgeist has changed dramatically, I think, throughout the last, let's say, 5-10 years. You know, even for me, I'm 44 now, and sometimes I'm like, wow, it's changing so rapidly, so quickly, to follow up all of the new kind of discussions and also discourses, and to also kind of try to kind of respond to that zeitgeist. And this is what we are trying to do. We were really asking ourselves with our little team. Also, I have very young colleagues, very open-minded, very ambitious colleagues, and together we are growing into this festival. And I'm very happy that that we will have another 3 years to work on that project, because 3 years it's not a lot of time. And the first question that we asked ourselves is, how can we serve Berlin also, you know, this vivid cultural scene in Berlin, and of course the musician scene in Berlin. And that musician scene has been kind of kept outside of the festival for a long, long time. So with Richard Williams, we started to change this, and how can we cooperate and work in a different way, also together with European and other partners, and how can we work on a more sustainable way? How can we create a narrative with this festival? What might be a relevant position of the Jazz Fest Berlin in such a cultural metropolis that is Berlin? That's still the biggest question, concerning the local level, concerning the artistic level, the musicianship locally, but also worldwide, and the whole cultural scene in Berlin. I talked a lot, sorry.
No worries. It's interesting. It is, yeah, the way the system that you have in Germany, that the top dogs are appointed not by application, but just by your network or who you happen to know. Well, that does sound a bit outdated. So yeah, let's see whether that changes as well. Like you said, it's been changing radically and very rapidly in the last 5 to 10 years. So like we're similar age with you, Nadine, and I can totally agree to what you said about the quick change. But yeah, talking of roles, one more role which is just as male dominated as the rest has been in the jazz is the media. So Fiona, what's your best practices? What's your experiences on this topic?
Well, I have to say, and this is why I started Women in Jazz Media, and it was a day, and as always, I was looking through different kind of jazz publications, and it's not a name and shame, but I was looking at one particular very historic kind of publication that's been around for many years, looking at the team of writers, and there was over 30 writers, and I was like, well, that's really impressive. Where are the women? And there was 2 women in this long list, and I see this all the time, but on that particular day I was like, you know what, I've had enough. I've had enough. Where are the female writers? And I set up this initially a Facebook group. I thought, well, let's form a community. Let's see if we can find the female writers, support each other. How can we make change? And then literally the next day I got a message from a writer in China. And she said, I've been looking for something like this my whole career. I've been writing about jazz for the past 8 years. I don't know any other women that do this. And for me, that was powerful, because initially I was just like, oh, let's get some women together. And then, obviously I started to explore this. And I think, this is one of the areas where I think we're making huge steps forward with women from a performance point of view, with composers and platforming. I think the print and digital media side of it has not moved anywhere near as quickly as the other areas, and it really needs to. Most publications, and of course there are some amazing publications out there, and in fact I'm going to highlight Citizen Jazz, who's one of the people that we spoke to initially. They're really great at platforming women. They have female writers, that equal and diverse and balanced publication, but it is rare. The male domination is still very strong out there, and there's examples, and I think what shocked me, there was the 2 in particular. So this publication that I first saw, and part of the work that I was doing is contacting publications and kind of saying, well, look, we're looking, how can I support you? How can we support you to have a more equal and diversity balanced writing team? And the response I got was, oh, that sounds lovely, but we don't support political movements. And again, that's exactly what I did. I just looked at this email and I was like, and my initial email was, this is the organization. We're looking at creating a diverse and balanced, jazz industry. Be great to have some support. Can we have a chat? So I wasn't kind of going in there hardcore with any kind of, feminist kind of, it was very friendly, professional and simple. But yes, this particular male editor thought it was a political movement. So we have, I think, in jazz writing in particular, and I think this historically goes back to the 30s when people started writing about jazz, and again, not a name and shame, but it's an infamous article in Downbeat that first started the women don't play jazz. Women, they don't swing. And there's many different discussions we could have on that, but I think that history in writing and journalists is historic and has not moved anywhere near as quickly as it is. I've had other conversations, one that I had only a few weeks ago, and again, it was a meeting, let's have a discussion about this. How can I support? How can I help you? And the opening thing that the male editor said was, oh yeah, I know I should have more women on the cover, but my readers don't want them. And again, I was like, really? And the justification for not including many women in this particular magazine was because apparently the audience don't want to see more women. So there's another discussion there. So we do have, and as I say, to highlight, there are publications out there that are amazing and do platform women, but it is not the dominant way. At the moment, it is very much a male-led, male writers. The majority of magazines have maybe 2% of their writers are female. Some have none. There are some that are kind of fairly balanced, but yeah, it's an ongoing issue. And of course, for me, I think it's all connected because we're all a collective. It all works together. The venues, the musicians, the writers, we all should be working as one. And I do think it is an area that's not been explored. There's no proper research out there. So there's some great data on many elements of gender in the jazz industry. I can't find any, and if anyone knows any, please do share it. I can't find any actual kind of proper research data on the media side of it. So I'm gonna start kind of formalizing a proper research project on that. But yes, sorry, I could talk for ages. So there's a brief overview of my thoughts on the situation with kind of print and digital media.
Yeah, what can you say? It's pretty overwhelming to hear it, and this is just something spontaneous that came to my mind about what you said about our readers don't want women, or, well, I don't have anyone in mind who's female and could write about jazz. What is behind that? Why is it so? Is the reason that the enthusiasts, those people whose hobby is jazz and who like to listen to jazz, have traditionally, especially in Europe, been those better off white males? Is that the reason? And then they sort of somehow build the audience, and that's why the media also thinks that, okay, these guys want more guys, or what's the reason? I don't know. Does anyone want to say something about this?
Well, one thing to just let me add to that before I talk too much and don't let anyone else talk. I think a big issue with writers in part of my research is the majority of writers are straight, white, male and older. Now, a large amount of this, from what I can see, is, of course, a lot of writers don't get paid. So, a lot of writers on the jazz publications, it's a hobby. It's something that
the enthusiasts,
yeah, you do it in retirement. So that absolutely has a part to play in this because, it is a hobby. And as I say, a lot of these publications where we have this male domination, they don't pay the writers and they are retired gentlemen.
So maybe we're looking towards the audience building here, and from the audience comes the media, etc. Next, Sunna.
Yeah, I think the scene for so long has been like a man's club, a boys' club, both with audience and performers. We also see it reflected in the audience that it's mostly men that go to jazz concerts. And I see it also in like people on my mailing list, people that order vinyls or CDs from me, it's mostly men. And so when I started the concert series with women, Freya Jazz, much to my surprise, most of the audience was women. It was predominantly women coming to hear women play. So I thought, wow, this is wonderful, So maybe we can just mix it up and get a better balance everywhere. we will all, you know, the whole scene will be better for it, because we will get more audience out, we will have more diversity, more interesting music, more stories being told, you know.
Yeah, maybe there's something in the image of jazz, in the word jazz, like at least here in Finland, it's pretty rare amongst the 15-somethings to be sort of jazz enthusiasts. And if there are some, they are often those bass or drums playing young guys. But yeah, Pelin, what did you want to say about this?
I think it's also a generational thing, and I slowly but surely it all comes a little bit from top to bottom. Like when you see a musician, male musicians on stage, therefore it's almost like joining a club. It's almost like, oh, there's this football game. Do you want to come and play with us? And people naturally tend to choose the people like them. And it's not just about gender, it's about backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, etc. So unfortunately, in all of the areas, not just jazz or music, of course, there are issues around classical music as well. People tend to build their own niches or their own corners, their own territories, and unfortunately, bubbles have formed. But what's happening in the new generation, I mean, talking about women, man is also outdated when you think about really advanced way of looking at genders. But it all starts from the role models on stage. Who is the first visionary hero to be on stage and bring over women musicians or whoever, and then bring over the likes of herself or themselves? Therefore the change starts. I mean, in this generation is actually seeing that moving forward, not just in the area of singers or pianists, but in other instruments where, yes, they see the role models, they may choose to become musicians themselves, they may choose to become the audience of that particular artist or group of artists, and the change will actually start and accelerate. However, it is taking time. Why is it taking so much time? The reason for it is the supporting structure around it, be it the media, be it festivals like ourselves. So we need to make sure that that supporting mechanism is there. When it comes to media, to Fiano's point, I mean, that is very old-fashioned, and that will go away. They have no chance to survive if they keep that attitude, because they won't have the right content. And content is the pillar, isn't it? And all these amazing writers, there are so many independent writers. There are young people like Women in Jazz, for instance, in the UK, who aren't just looking at the musicians or the performing side of things, but also looking at the communication side of things, the marketing, the business side of things. We are also looking at that as serious. The younger people are choosing online independent media or doing their own blogs, doing their own podcasts, having 100K, like 100,000 listeners, probably that Jazz Magazine isn't achieving with print media. So if they can't, get that wing behind them, they will be outdated. So it's at their risk. Be my guest, It's happening. It's definitely happening, and it's our job to accelerate that, facilitate that, to open up the supporting mechanisms around that.
Exactly. So role models, you said, all of you mentioned this before in a form or another, that you had your well, Sunna said you were very alone in the beginning, but now it's more and more female jazz musicians on stages. And so you mentioned role models as well as your supporting peers, your networks. What about this? What's the importance? Who wants to start? Martina.
Yeah, because I want to refer to what Fiona Rose said about the readers, that there is the decision already taken for the readers that they don't want to read, because I really doubt that there was, as you said, there was any research on that, that is just like some kind of a survey that, do you want to read about women? No. Well, I think that I haven't heard that among the programmers that would be an argument, that the audience don't want to see the female artist, the instrumentalist. I haven't heard that, but what I hear all the time, and this is some kind of mantra that I'm already like so used to, that is like, why to structure the gender balance, because the quality first and then the female, right? So that is like quality first, and that we should keep on going, which is already, I think that is already depreciate the ladies in the first place, the instrumentalists, because already in this kind of statement that quality first and then we have to think about gender, we already put the gender on the second role. And I really compare that always with the social projects. It's either we play the serious jazz on the scene, or we present the serious jazz, or we do something for kids, or we do social projects. So it's already like the serious jazz, and then there is something else, and the women are something else. So this is something very serious. This is something that I really try to revert, and to say that, okay, I agree, the quality must be first. So why we as a promoters shouldn't include the women? Because this is our role, as Pelin said, this is our responsibility to choose. We listen to the albums, we read the magazines, we are going to the festivals, listen to live music. So we should know, and this is our responsibility to find these women, and this should be natural. But in this way, just putting this, quality first, and then the instrumentalists or singers, so then it's somehow this pushing our side. This is like somewhere else, that this is not us, but this is us, and this is our role, and this is our job to find these women. And then I was just also thinking about that in practice, how to change that. Would that be any solution? That the enthusiasts, the guys, are taking their daughters for the concerts, or their sons to the concerts, because the other concert, their son will take his girlfriend. And this is how this new generation is raising up, and this has to be started very early. So again, we talk about education, but this kind of education is not at school, but on a very family side of spending time and spending free time, and just educating within our families. So I was just thinking, I'm just thinking aloud. But what Ragnar was also commenting before, when he was having his talk, that inequality is very structured. So we have to also structure the gender balance. And that was my response. This is very good response, actually, about the arguments that why should we talk about 50-50? That's why. I think that that's the good argument for that. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yes, it's this quality first, as I think we all agree, it's very problematic way to put it, because quality isn't something that we can measure. Quality isn't neutral. It's not objective. It's always decided by someone. And if the decision makers are all male and they say what quality is, then we are in a problem. Nadine, yes.
I'd like to comment on this, that when I was presenting my first program draft to a committee that is composed by journalists that are kind of media partners for the Jazz Fest for a long time, their first reaction kind of was that, because their reaction is like, could this work? And that was an overall reaction that I received in Germany by journalists that are for a big part male journalists of a certain age, as we just said. And I agree totally that it's a very, I mean, to be a jazz journalist is really, you need to be very passionate. You do this out of enthusiasm, as we already said, because it's very badly or not at all paid. That's one of the reasons why the structures are as they are. And also what we already said is it has been a certain generation that the whole power that held the power in this very niche that we are all dealing and working in hands. It was a certain, I remember very well when I attended the first time Jazz Ahead, that was in 2008, and I was pregnant. I had a big belly. And my mission was, at that time I was working for Jazzwerk Ruhr, which is a small musicians network based in the Ruhr area in Germany. So not in a shiny metropolis like Berlin, but a kind of Ruhr area, Essen, Dortmund, other cities. And I was representing pretty unknown musicians. And my mission was, okay, I will take my own money in hand, and I need to get to know all of these important people, the journalists, the other promoters, like what a fair is all about, you know. And I was really stalking all of these very important guys. And at that time, I also remember seeing these guys that the members of the Europe Jazz Network, the attitude of these big guys who represented also the Europe Jazz Network, not all of them, but it was, for me, being a younger woman, not at all known in the scene, it was very intimidating to speak to them, because it wasn't an open attitude like, hey, but it was like, which kind of is understandable probably. You know, you are new and nobody knows you and knows what you want or could understand you in a certain way, but it was a kind of also exclusive club, as others also said in this conversation. And that's not only promoters and journalists, it's the whole, also label managers. The big labels are still run by males of a certain age. And I had the feeling that generation kind of they forgot to open up also to younger people, not only females, but also the younger generation. And I also remember at that point that being then in that field for many years, that I listened to conversations that the colleagues said, elder colleagues said, yeah, but where are the others? There are no others, you know, where is the young generation pushing and wanting to take over responsibility? And and that is changing. It's good. And also with the Europe Jazz Network, it changed. It opened up to a bigger diversity of the field, not only the big main players, but really to let in the heterogenic sector of Europe, and also freelancers. I was only a freelancer and I could attend all of a sudden this network, and that helped a lot. Talking about networks, I also want to underline that it's not only a generational matter, you know, and question. I learned a lot from elder colleagues and they supported me a lot. And I also am still advocating for this, because it is a fact that that this generation is getting retired now and will disappear. And it's already happening for the last, let's say, 5 years. And with them would also disappear a certain knowledge and experience and network, you know. So I'm always saying for years, like, we should benefit from also to kind of learn from these very experienced colleagues, you know, and also to kind of find ways of how to keep them into the field as advisors, as mentors, because they gave their life very often for the music and for this field, and were working for decennia in this sector. And it's a bit already happening. Yeah, voila.
Exactly. So many topics here, and I'm trying to follow the clock as well. We wanted to address the facts and the figures. There's the Keychange that's been mentioned many times, aiming at 50-50 balance. Yet, as we know, for example, Pelin was, before when we were preparing for this, she was bringing up this these measurements that were made by Ternström Jazz Festival, where they found out that actually if there's an act with, let's say, 1 female and 4 males on stage, that calculates as a female artist. So the reality behind relatively nicely looking numbers can also be pretty harsh still to this day. So how are the numbers looking like? We said there's been an enormous change already in the last 10 years, but what about, for example, education? Do we have girls studying in the jazz institutions, etc.? Who wants to start on this? It's a hard topic. Thanks, Pelin.
I mean, I will change the question a little bit, because I'm not a favorite. I'm not favoring talking about numbers, but also the personal experience. I mean, in terms of numbers, we can be there, but how is the personal experience? And when it comes to numbers, yes, Keychange is actually a wonderful initiative, making sure that this is talked about and this is considered. And when we sign up to that pledge, we then have this, you know, like, we scrutinize what we're doing and we make changes accordingly, because that needs a certain motivation, a certain commitment, a certain promise. So it's doing a great job. And I think what they found out, having observed what the reality is, if we were to count number by number, like people, but person by person, we wouldn't be able to achieve the positive results. So positive encouragement is very needed in these circumstances. So imagine a fantastic woman, female leader of a band, and she may choose to work with other female musicians, but at the end of the day, there is only a certain resource of, female musicians who may not be available, etc. Then they end up by playing with 5 guys. So Keychange actually wants to rationalize how to approach this by saying, if there's at least one female member in one position, in one slot in your festival, in one act, then you count it as a positive achievement. Therefore, you have you approach the 50% target as such. But as you pointed out, how do we achieve the actual individual numbers, more musicians, more women musicians being on stage, is actually coming from the education in the conservatoires or the jazz education institution, higher education institutions, how welcoming and inclusive the environment is, so that a female musician actually chooses that path and doesn't quit along the way. I mean, we've seen quitters, we've seen not just around the balance or the unfairness, but also COVID being more struck towards child carer, women, the responsibilities, paid work versus non-paid work. Is it a worse or like an unfavorable situation for women? So how can we guarantee that the education, and again, I'm repeating myself, but the supporting mechanisms around encouraging women to stay in the field, how can we improve those situations? Otherwise, numbers are just like, oh, I did my homework, this is my job, I looked at the situation and looked at the stats, and it works fine. It gives us a structure. Sometimes when we tend to miss things, it's a great reminder. But also we need to dig down into the personal stories. There may be women, great women. There are women, great women. How do they do just the performance? Do they stick out for the jam sessions? Do they find the safe and supportive environment when they do the jam sessions? Female directors like myself, if I didn't have my colleagues, my wonderful colleagues like Nadine, Martina, and others in the network, would I choose to do the hang until 3 a.m. with just the male colleagues? I could, because I never actually thought about it. Oh, I'm the only woman in the room. But then you keep noticing it. I never noticed when I first met Nadine, oh, another female director in the jazz scene. I didn't. It was just a wonderful colleague, a person I talked to. But then I realized this is being noticed, not by us, but by others. So I think numbers, yes, great, gives us the structure, but also let's dig down to the personal stories, how people are finding the inclusivity in the education, in the profession. And I personally, again, repeating, I'm very lucky coming from a background in Istanbul where we had 75% female professionals. One of the main jazz publications was run by a female publicist, as well as running a jazz club. So we had really great role models. So I didn't really question that. But yeah, when numbers are being talked about, I started, oh, exactly, my personal experience might be nice, but what about the others' personal experience? That the number shows that is not actually great for other people. So we need to have that understanding as well.
Absolutely. Very many totally crucial points in your what you just said. One is the safety, the safe spaces, feeling safe in your physical and your mental environment. We discussed this before. For example, what you said about the jam sessions. Are they safe? Is it safe to, like, physically safe, but also do I feel welcome, etc.? Any takes on this? Fiona, okay, Suna, thank you.
Yeah, when I was living in New York, I went to New York to go to school, and I think I was one of 3 instrumentalists in a program of maybe 80 or 100 guys. And then after I graduated, and I'm starting to play gigs, and I'm looking around me to see who are the other women on the scene, and they're all band leaders. And I think, you know, even if women go to school for jazz and want to pursue that, it's still very difficult for them to enter the scene. And I think that's what it looks like is happening in Iceland, that even those women that do finish their jazz studies in Iceland, they then just decide to do something else. They pursue a career in jazz. And I think those that have done so previously, they have been band leaders. And so you have to sort of carve your own space and kind of elbow your way through. And so I think it's been very important in recent years that somebody like Pat Metheny has Linda O in his band. That we're starting to see more these established male musicians having female sidemen, and that needs to become the norm, so that women, when they finish their studies, that they can feel like feel welcomed on the scene, and they're embraced by their male co-workers. And so also the men need to see that they must be a solution to this problem also.
Yes, that's a good point. Often when there are those fields where women are underrepresented, there's this somewhat toxic way that I'm just one of the guys, you know, you should consider me as one of the guys. But maybe that's exactly what's needed. Like not only the vocalist or the pianist who leads their own band as a female musician, but also those side men and side women. So it would be a total norm. It doesn't matter whether you're a female or male or third, something so that you can still be a credible and totally sort of reliable jazz musician. Anything else on this safety issue or facts and figures? Martina, please.
Yeah, I will maybe talk a bit more about facts and figures, but in a different way. I mean the number of acts, because there is something, and then this argument I also hear when we are discussing the gender equality, the Keychange, that yeah, your festival is small, so the festival that you are running is just like 14 acts or 12 acts, and it's easier. And then I said that, yeah, maybe yes. And then in the beginning, I was thinking that, yeah, it's easier because our festival is small. And then I thought that, wait a second, if Primavera Sound in Barcelona, one of the biggest festivals in Europe, can maintain the gender equality and also 50-50, sorry guys, everybody can do that. And there is pop music, which is very male dominated, and it's really hard. So if we can do that, if they can do that, everybody can, I think. So it's just a matter of really searching and preparing. I just saw the lineup for the next year of Primavera Sound in Barcelona. It's amazing. All the headliners, and I think that finding these headliners in pop music that was really big challenge, and they managed. So I think that was the first thing that I'm repeating myself all the time. I'm giving this Primavera as an example, like all the time. So I'm like, this is my favorite thing to say. I had to say that, and I just wanted to mention Linda O, because yesterday I heard the podcast that was recorded in the radio, Polish radio, the program number 2 in the beginning of May. And I recommend, this is just like promotion for my colleagues, 2 fantastic journalists, Janusz Jabłoński, Tomasz Gregorczyk, who have this brilliant radio program, Improvised Talks, Rozmowy Improwizowane, and they made a special feature dedicated to patriarchy and gender equality in the improvised scene. I really recommend, I'm trying to encourage the guys, I know if they hear me now, to do it all in English, and I hope that in summer they will have some time to do that. Linda O was one of the featuring artists there, and she was saying that in the beginning, she was also like withdrawing from these discussions. She didn't want to take part in that, and also about racial background, about gender, but then at some point, she found it so important that now she's standing up. She's also mentioned there are fantastic artists included in this program. like Susana Santos Silva, there's Irena Schweitzer, so also different generations, different ways of thinking about that. There's Matana Roberts, who is saying that if somebody is denying sexism in improvised scene, they're just saying bullshit, I'm quoting, and they're all lies. There's like the interview with Susanna and saying that this is like, so then she also thought about that. So at some point, I think that we are so aware of these problems, and also our colleagues, because there are so few journalists, I mean, like I could name 3 right away, that are also inspiring our program. I'm consulting the programming with them. These 2, Tomasz and Janusz, they are always very big support, and they are talking about it. And I think that that was also my concern, that we need more guys, we need more men to be in this group. Now, even now with our discussion, we are all female promoters, journalists, artists, and then I really would like to see some, like baritone saxophonist guy talking about that as well, that he experienced this like within his colleagues, because improvised scene is also mixed, and how is it really going, how they perceive that, would they deny this problem, or would they be on the same level as us, and would they speak for us? Because would they be on our side? I mean, in this way, because then even when I think about our colleagues within Jazz Network, there are also a few who what I would name very easily, who are aware, who are also fighting for that, like Steve Mead from Manchester Jazz, for instance. But we need more support.
Absolutely. Fiona's turn.
Yeah, hi. So I was just thinking, whilst obviously we can and do talk about these issues, there are many men out there who actually are incredibly supportive, and that's, as we were saying, we need more of those. And I've been overwhelmed, I have to say, with some of the work that I've been doing, with the contacts that have completely got on board. And yes, men that have said we would like to have a more diverse industry, male editors of publications that have said, yes, you know what, I know this is an issue, please tell me how I can fix it. So there is an awful lot of good practice. And just to give one example, and again, it's not a name and shame because this is actually a positive thing, there was a publication that I contacted and all of their front covers had been men. They'd not had, it was a fairly new publication, they'd all been men, and I contacted them and we had a friendly conversation, and I said, it's all been men. And I genuinely believed their response, because I kind of work with them quite closely now. They went, oh, I hadn't realized. And I genuinely think it hadn't even occurred to them, the gender of who's on the front cover. And they said, we need to get a woman on the cover. I was kind of like, well, yes, that would be good. And then I said, what about inside? And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, look at the articles that you've written. And genuinely, they were like, well, yeah, these are great artists. And like, they are great artists, but they're all men. Oh yeah, but we've had one woman there. It's like, yes, and she's amazing. She's a singer. What about instrumentalists? And in that particular case, I genuinely believed it just hadn't occurred to them. But since then, they're now on it. They now have a really balanced kind of programming of the writers, so the gender balance of the writers, but also the articles they are writing about, that it isn't just female singers, because that's another conversation we could have about, exposure for female singers has quite often been there, but it's the instrumentalists and composers and so on. But I think there are, just to kind of, there is some really positive stories about men getting on board and supporting our work. But absolutely, as you said earlier, that's what we need, more of that. We absolutely need more.
That's a very valuable thing to mention, that it isn't necessarily Badwell, or it isn't necessarily the boys club. It's just the harmful tradition that we aren't aware of. And I think educating each other, making each other aware of this, and asking those questions. Hey, hello, have you noticed you haven't had any female musicians in your front cover? Oh, we haven't. Oh, we should fix that. So it's actually a lesson to learn. And I think Kim Macari in her fantastic keynote also mentioned this, that it's okay to ask the stupid questions. It's okay to make mistakes, because that's how we learn and that's how we educate each other. And anyways, we have something like 11 minutes left, which is a bit sad because we just got this going. So I think what we could do now is to move towards the solutions. What is there to do? And one thing I promised we would tackle when I opened this panel was the pandemic. Someone already mentioned that it's hitting the women harder than it's hitting the men because we are the caretakers. We have more responsibilities now that all the families stay inside their flats. It's all of a sudden the women that have to do all the extra hidden workload, etc., etc. But what are the solutions? Who wants to start? Easy question, huh? Nadine, could you take this?
Of course. Solutions. I mean, I think it's a process, and we are in the middle of a big process. I think that society is changing a lot, and I'm very happy about it. It's about diversity, it's about participation, and it's also about giving, like, I think there's a new concept of power coming up, and I'm also dealing with this a lot. I'm seeing that the younger generation is working much more in terms of teams, you know, to share power, and even artistic directorships, if you would ask me, it should be a teamwork on an equal level. I also have advisors. We all have a good network. Nobody is doing these jobs alone. But I would love to have a team dealing with me also concerning the content on the same level and not only advisors, you know. And because the way I'm working, we are working on cultural productions, on festivals these days, has so dramatically changed. If you look around, of course you invite bands, but then a lot of us are dealing with artists in a different way, like on a very communicative level, in order to create productions, bringing the local musicians together with artists that are coming to the festival to make them stay longer, and then everything that is what Martina so brilliantly described as side projects, like the social projects, the educative projects, all of this. But the Jazz Fest Berlin is not at all good in this. So in a way, if I would be in charge of this, I would change the whole structure and the whole way of thinking. And that has to do with the zeitgeist that is in place, you know. It's not about this one figure talking about directors, general directors or artistic directors, doesn't matter. The guys that are on top of it having too much power in hand. In Germany, we have a huge discussion going on at the moment concerning the theater, and it's all about power structures. And in big institutions, it's still the fact that there is a general director in charge of the managing side and also on the content side. So the structure facilitates also abuse of power. So you have these figures that are shining on top of it still, but it's changing and it's questions. There are there's a debate going on that can't be stopped anymore. It's people stepping out of the shadow, talking in public about abuse of power, not only sexual abuse within cultural institutions, but really abuse of power, which is connected to a kind of structure that is completely outdated, I think. And we need to talk about diversity in a way broader term. It's not only gender and sexual diversity, it's also diversity seen, the whole global scene, and also our diverse societies. You know, where are all of these people representing minorities in very powerful positions, you know? And then also I'm talking to musicians, like, because the musicians are the ones that are on stage in the end. The musicians are the ones, they are very, very powerful. And please, musicians, I mean, we all are in this together. And create more diverse, balanced groups, you know, like look for minorities within your own cities. This is what happened, what is now happening more and more with musicians that I'm talking to in Berlin, that they are asking themselves, where are the others? Where are the ones that have not attended the conservatory, which is still also a very wide dominated field, you know? Where is all of the pluralism? And that's very interesting. So we are all in this journey together. The solution is just go on and be aware of what's happening and listen to each other, and also don't exclude. I have been going through so many provocations throughout the last years, and I have always tried to respond to it in a very comprehensive, also diplomatic way. I have tried to understand the elder generation that had serious doubts about my qualification, if I would be kind of appropriate to lead such a big festival. And also I had questions, and I'm constantly questioning myself, also in public. I don't want to be this over figure standing there and just knowing everything. I know something, but I need conversations, I need networks, musicians. I want to be part of society, and not to stand out.
Very well put. Yeah, we don't want to fall in love with our own power. So yes, let's be diverse. Let's see the other people as well. But Pelin next, we only have a few minutes left.
I'll keep it short because Suna also wants to say something. Picking up from artists have the power, and science, data, stats, they may not touch the hearts of people. Whereas what artists do on stage is more transferable as a change-making statement. So artists have the power, and we have the job and duty to support the artist in making those decisions or that presentation performance happen. And also we have the chance to how to use our own position and the power which was graced to us. We are not just gatekeepers where we select and make indulgent choices very personally. We have to be open, teamwork, yes, learning from colleagues, and not just from the older generation. Like Nadine said, both older generation and also younger colleagues who have a different perspective on how they see diversity, gender balance, gender minorities. And it's not just men and women. It is, different gender identities who may not find themselves in the right corners with the given structure. So we need to learn and constantly understand. Also the choice of words. I mean, we need to identify performers as if they have composer or producer identity. Women tend not to be mentioned as producers. So we need to also mention that. We also need to look at our teams, who is running the production. So even though Nadine had a steep experience in becoming the leader of the artistic side of things, I think you were a good role model on leading the production. That is the area which is much more needed, where we see the female presence. So could we also look at these? So it's all together, it's joining up these dots, and then we will hopefully have a better landscape.
Absolutely, we're all in this together. 1 minute left for Sunna, Martina, and Fiona. Sunna first.
Yeah, I think it's just important that we keep the conversation going to increase awareness. The more we all become aware, the more we think about it, I think the more we will move in the right direction. And also, like Martina mentioned, some directors use it as an excuse that it's hard to find female or diverse groups. You can just reach out to other directors, reach out to people. If you belong to a network, ask for recommendation, like who are your 3 favorite female-led bands or whatever, and you will get a lot of good recommendations. So
absolutely, build your own network, be active with that. It's an asset, it's a tool for you in the future. This is what I would say to 20-year-old myself. I didn't quite get it then. Okay, Martina.
Yeah, for me, I will just take 2 seconds, and I will say 2 words maybe, which are maybe very positive in the sense of everything, because communication was already mentioned, and being open and networking. I think that these are the crucial things. But I would just add something quickly. 2 E's, education, as we already talked about it shortly, and empathy. And I think that this is something that we need a lot. And I would just stop with these 2 words.
Fantastic 2 E's, education and empathy. Thank you. Fiona.
I can't do just 2 words, but I think let me try and summarize it. Since I started Women in Jazz Media, I have been overwhelmed by how inspirational and empowering a collective of women is. And I think what has really kind of, and again, even looking and speaking to you, these conversations are important and need to happen. But I think quite often we can underestimate the power that we have to make change, and I've found in a really short amount of time, and it's only been 6 months, as a collective, we have actually made change. And this is a tiny, small amount of what needs doing. But I think, the power of getting together, talking, discussing these issues, reaching out, that community collective feel, we can actually make change. And I think that's one thing for me, is that, that surely this is what that shows, is we're talking about it, we can actually make a difference. So all of us, let's go do it.
That's exactly so. It's a little bit of daring and believing that what I do as a tiny person from a tiny village does make a difference if I gather together and build that network and just start the action and not sort of wait for someone else to do it. It is 13:30 here in Finland and 12:30 in Stockholm, I guess. So it's about time to wrap this up. It's been fantastic to talk to you all, and nice to have many people online following us. But it's really sort of been a beautiful, inspiring discussion with all of you. So I would say thank you, tack så mycket, danke schön, etc. It's been a very good talk, and thanks for the comments. Thanks to all of you, Fiona, Pelin, Sunna, Martina, Nadine. Applause to you. Thanks to EETN for providing us this platform. Thanks a lot, and see you later.
When you think about jazz, it's a lot of male artists mostly, so it's so nice to see an event just with female jazz artists.
Jag tycker det var helt fantastiskt första akten. Jag gillade det verkligen jättemycket. Och jag har själv börjat spela saxofon ganska nyligen, så det var ju otroligt att få lyssna till det här.
We are connecting as musicians and as women, as people.
It's a really nice combination of groups. Different music, but good vibes, and we had a great time playing here.
I'm enjoying the music very much, and the organization is just perfect, and I love that there is an event that is focusing on women in jazz music. It's amazing, and I really support it, and I hope it's going to be bigger and bigger for every year.
It was really cool, actually. The public were really receptive and really, I think they enjoyed a lot, and we enjoyed a lot.
I loved it. It was amazing. A lot of people, full crowd, and really reactive crowd, and people enjoyed it. It was amazing.
I think it's also a very cozy atmosphere. It's
It's a nice environment and you can be really close to the artists. So it's really, really cool.
It's been a great event so far, loving the concerts. It's always amazing to discover new artists, and it felt like I discovered some new favorite ones.